I'm not saying anything. No kidding.
I was like, come on, there's an insult there. I know it. I can feel it. I set you up so well.
And to be fair, you guys are always calling me the eye candy, which makes no sense at all. So, and I mean you and Ruth. So,
Chocolate Thunder, Dark Decadence. It's
like I'm
it's
even
a
that dark.
it's a thing. Well, I mean, you're darker than me.
Yeah, of course I'm darker than white people.
Especially this white person. I'm kind of light.
Anyway,
Yeah. So aggravating when Ruth comes to visit. She's all like, look, I'm already tan. And it's like, shut up. I live here and I'm not tan.
I got tan on the drive here. I got tan on the plane.
She actually did get tan on the drive here the first time she came down because she and Bug drove.
That's
And she's
right.
like, look, I got tan. I'm like, shut up. Don't like you right now.
You see, that was your first mistake. You liked her in the first place.
Ah, and she never gave me a choice. She was just like, I'm going to come visit you and you're going to love me. And I was like, what? And then she was here.
She was here. It's like she had the transporter from Star Trek or something. It was weird.
Like, what is happening? People are in my house. I don't know what's going on anymore. And then I forced her to watch the extended edition of Lord of the Rings. And I was like, we bonded over the precious. And it was the start of a wonderful relationship.
That's also a really dangerous way to bond because the last time that happened, someone killed someone else.
I mean, I'm not saying that didn't happen. Just saying, you'll never be able to prove
What?
it.
I just realized my camera's been angled really high. It's been angled really high this entire time. I haven't just like shrunk down here. So anyway, I'm trying to think. I feel like there was something else I wanted to talk about.
Probably something really serious and important.
Honestly, no. I mean, like, there's things to talk about that are really serious and important. And honestly, I feel like we could have a whole hour-long discussion about Harvey Weinstein and sexual abuse and
Oh,
the
wow.
entertainment industry, but I'm not sure we want to do that right now.
Maybe not. Maybe not. I'll sum it up by saying I do not believe we have a rape culture. I believe we have a porn culture. And that has influenced the way that everyone thinks about other people and themselves
And
and
how they end
their
up treating people.
entitlement to other people. And yeah,
And I agree
basically.
100% that that's actually the perfect summary for what I've been thinking on the matter.
So yeah, but oh gosh, that could definitely fill a half hour just on its own.
Well, I will say there's one thing I've been watching lately, because in addition to The Walking Dead resuming, Star Wars Rebels resumed. Um, and it's the final season. First of all, it's the final season. They're stopping it at 4. Um, and I'm not 100% sure why. I think it is. I think the reasons. I think there's like a kind of a twofold reason here. One, I think the story actually has come sort of to is coming to its logical conclusion. I think that they did have after season 2 they had a bit of a direction change for where the series was going, but it's also just because that direction change the series is already coming to its logical end. But from what I understand, I also believe they have some other animated project possibly coming down the pipe. Not exactly sure what that is, and I haven't like looked particularly deeply into it, but I do get the sense they might have some new Star Wars, like some new big Star Wars animated series or something. Because I know that they're like sort of getting Dave Filoni, the producer of both Clone Wars and Rebels, in on this project. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Like if they try to do something that's maybe set more in the new trilogy era, the sequel trilogy era, or something along those lines. I'd definitely be 100% interested to see something like that. I know that Disney's been producing a lot of more kid-oriented things, but I know that when they want to get like they want to kind of get their serious stuff in, they like get this, they like rely on Filoni and his primary project. So I'm kind of interested to see where they go, because Clone Wars was definitely a success. As awkward as the first season or two was, after when season three kicked off, it took off like fire. And Rebels has been absolutely solid all the way through. I'm definitely interested to see, because Rebels, of course, is now going to lead into Rogue One, basically. Elements from Rebels, in fact, make little cameo appearances throughout cameo appearances throughout Rogue One. So, characters and name drops, and the primary ship, the Ghost, appears in the Battle of Scarif. So seeing how they kind of, and of course Saw Gerrera is also appearing as well. But Saw Gerrera, of course, is a character from the Clone Wars, which I think is actually a really cool tie-in, because he was a really minor character from that series. And the fact that they brought him back and actually made him someone of relative consequence, I think is actually really cool. It's nice to see that they're engaging in some element of continuity. Something George Lucas didn't do with the prequels. But
Oh yeah.
I mean, because I went over that in the Clone Wars analysis video, I think I did it 3 years ago, where I talked about the fact that George Lucas did a lot of, like, creating. He made a lot of new elements in the Star Wars prequels that never show up again. Problem being that kind of creates not necessarily continuity errors, but it creates little continuity snafus, Whereas, like, there are tens of millions of battle droids, produced in the Clone Wars. You don't see a single one in the original trilogy. The only time you ever see one is if you watch Star Wars Revisited, the fan edit, and everyone inserts like an old B-1 battle droid into the Jawa sandcrawler. That's the only time you see it. Otherwise, you don't see Clone Wars elements, and that's weird.
Yeah.
It would have been more interesting. I honestly think it would have been more interesting if George Lucas had used some expanded universe elements, stuff that was already created by other authors and so forth. And a combination of that and a combination of things that he probably would have, he might have thought would have been sort of precursors to, what we would eventually see in the original trilogy. But he kind of doesn't do that, and it creates a lot of it kind of creates a lot of little holes in the continuity. And that's always irked me, honestly. It always irked me, because it's this huge war happens 20 years earlier, and yet you see no evidence of that war 20 years later.
Right, yeah.
Why, for example, the weapons the Rebels are using, why don't we see those in the Clone Wars, That would make a lot more sense than creating a whole bunch of new weapons that no one ever uses ever again.
That's true. That was one thing that I liked about The Force Awakens, was that you did see evidence of previous battles.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where Jakku works, where in many ways it doesn't, because, it's basically Tatooine again. But that's also why Jakku works, in that you see the ruins of the Galactic Civil War 30 years earlier. Longer than the Clone War, between the Clone Wars and the Galactic Civil War. Now this new First Order conflict in the Galactic Civil War, and you're seeing evidence of the old Galactic Civil War. Now I could spend, ages quibbling about how everything feels exactly the same, but that's not really the point. The point is that at least there's evidence that the past happened.
Yeah. I actually really like that. And I did actually really like The Force Awakens. I know you didn't like it as much, but
I wouldn't say that. I enjoy the movie, but it's just the problem is that just as time goes on, I see more and more flaws, and that sours the experience a little, And it's not just flaws it's not just flaws it's flaws like little things all over the place, which make me kind of okay, so this wasn't as good as I thought it was. It's not bad, but it's not great either. It's not like what it should have been, in my honest opinion. Because you saw that Facebook post I made, what, maybe 3 months ago, where I said that's like the more I think about Rogue One, the better I think it is, and the more I think about The Force Awakens, the more holes I can kind of poke into it. That's kind of like what it is. I hate that I can do that too because it's like I want to like it too. That's the thing. I want to like it. It's Star
Loved
Wars.
it. I didn't just like it, I loved it. And I think that I can love it because I know that it's unfinished. Like there's going to be a couple more to follow it,
Hmm.
and so I'm not picking it apart. Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, the entire trilogy is frankly very dependent on The Last Jedi. It's very dependent on how good The Last Jedi is. If The Last Jedi in any, if The Last Jedi is in some way like disappointing, like a big way, or even like The Force Awakens in a bunch of little ways, I think that's going to cause the entire trilogy to ultimately, like, not like financially, but like in a critical sense, kind of end up flopping. Whereas if The Last Jedi is really good, it's going to end up making up for The Force Awakens, any like perceived flaws of The Force Awakens. Because bear in mind, I'm not really trying to sound hypercritical here, because I'm not. But this is important because I think perception is really important in this case. I think if The Last Jedi is really good, it will make up for any like sort of perceived flaws in the minds of a lot of fans in The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens repeating the Death Star plot, etc., etc. But if it isn't, it's gonna drag down the rest of the trilogy, especially if Disney keeps on with the idea of having Jar Jar. I almost said Jar Jar Abrams. I like JJ.
Jar Jar Abrams.
Oh, I don't want to say that. I like JJ Abrams. He's a good filmmaker. He's not a good storyteller, but he's definitely a good filmmaker. He makes good films. I don't. I think it's bad. I think it's not. I think it does him a disservice to say that he doesn't. He's not a great storyteller, based on on the new Star Trek movies, but he definitely makes good films. He makes good, exciting films, films that keep you engaged, films that keep you watching. You still want to see the end of the movie. You really want to see the end of the movies he makes. But I kind of do hope, though, that they do kind of change. They keep to their promise and actually not have JJ Abrams, not Jar Jar, JJ.
Oh my gosh.
Because that that's
Uh,
that's the that's the insult, that's the derogatory nickname they get, some fans give him. So I'm trying to avoid. I don't want to do that because I don't really feel the same about Abrams at
What's
all.
so funny to me is that this whole conversation about Star Wars and Force Awakens reminds me of an episode of My Little Pony, and it is hilarious. I would definitely suggest that you
Still a
watch it.
series. It's actually a series. I actually do want to watch My Little Pony. Gotta be honest,
It's
because
so funny. I love just like their personalities and everything, and the humor in it. But this particular episode, it was, and the pony's name actually was Quibble because he was quibbling about the fandom, and it was he and Rainbow Dash. Okay, they met at this Comic-Con, and they love the same character, so they're in the same fandom and they're getting along swimmingly, and then they start quibbling. And he loves like um the earlier adaptation of this character, and she loves the later adaptation, and he's just, yeah, it's so funny to me because this conversation actually reminds me of the My Little Pony episode with Quibble.
it's similar to a conversation I had yesterday, where a new guy at work, we were talking about the possibility of making a trilogy of like some sort, like talk about the possibility of some sort of movie trilogy being made out of the Silmarillion,
Oh, wow.
and he was misremembering the Silmarillion so hard it was killing me.
Oh my gosh.
Because like, I'm not gonna be honest, I don't remember all the details perfectly, but I remember enough to know that he was getting a lot of things wrong. I'm just like, oh god. And I hate to
Yeah.
say it, but the guy's a little annoying anyway, so it wasn't helping things. he's like,
Like, I already don't like you. Shut up.
it's not even that I don't like. It's not even that I don't like him necessarily, but it's like I do wish he would shut up sometimes. Because he's really chatty. He's really chatty. You know,
Oh,
like I'm sitting there trying to check my social media or trying to read my book, and he's talking, and it's just like, well, guess I'm not doing that.
oh, that's awful.
But then, but then to make matters worse, he's clearly misremembering a lot of the elements of the Silmarillion. A lot of the elements of the history of the First Age. You know, like he's clearly forgetting like the entire time period between the Noldor Rebellion and the War of Wrath, for example.
Wow.
Like this clearly is not registering in his head, and it's like, but dude, it's like 300, 400 years of history. Like you can't just forget this entire time frame between the Noldor leaving Valinor and the Valar coming from Valinor to finally defeat Morgoth. There's a huge time frame here that you can't skip. And that's really one of the problems, underlying problems, of course, of trying to think of even creating a movie trilogy of the First Age.
Oh gosh, no, definitely not a trilogy.
Is that there's too much to do.
There's so many smaller stories within the story. I mean, it's just
though
you
I
couldn't
would like
do
to
it.
ask, if you had to be limited to a movie trilogy, how would you make it?
Of the
And
Silmarillion?
yeah, if it absolutely had to be because of Hollywood nonsense or whatever.
No.
If it had to be crammed into that,
Uh,
how would you make it?
I wouldn't.
Rather,
There's no way to do that and do it justice.
rather, what I would say is that first of all, what you couldn't do is try to make it like the Lord of the Rings, like you tried to make the Hobbit into a trilogy. But you couldn't make it into like the Lord of the Rings, that you try to make it into one overarching self-contained plot. What you would have to do basically is take the various elements and find the best ones to make 3 individual movies. If because just say you were because knowing Hollywood, you would you would just hit some sort of stupid arbitrary limitation into how much you could make.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to risk the
there's
money,
no way.
they don't want to take the time.
It hurts me to even think about it. You have to cut too much of it out.
Well, let's phrase it another way. What would you think?
The Silmarillion is being adapted for screen with some other big Tolkien nerds. And basically we came to the conclusion that the only way to do it, and we're still really ambivalent about, we really don't want this done because they would screw it up. We know that
I would agree.
Totally screw it up. Don't do it.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
But the only way to do it would be to release it as a series.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I think maybe here's another way to think about it, though. What would you think are the 3 most important stories out of the First Stage that would have to be told, that you could not avoid telling whatsoever?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. You would have to tell the story of Fëanor.
Right. I agree with that.
I mean, that's just. I mean, it's where the name Silmarillion comes from. You would have to tell that.
Right.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like Barrett and Luthien are important. And not only that, but their tale alone would itself just would actually make a decent movie. Assuming that someone actually wrote it right.
And it's just it. How would you include that? Baron and Luthien is its own movie. Just like, the story of Turin Turambar is its own movie. Or The Children of Hurin.
I would probably choose The Children of Hurin.
Right.
As the third. But the thing is that I think it would depend on how you would contextualize it in the greater narrative of Middle Earth. I think that would be very important for making any sort of movies
I
from
mean,
the Silmarillion.
you've
You have
got
to.
there's so much like with Gilgalad and oh wow.
Well, Gilgalad, he's more important than the Second Age, so. Like,
Yeah,
because Gilgalad was only just born, at the end of the First Age.
but okay, so
I th-
super important and actually important throughout Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. You would have Fëanor, Beren and Luthien, and geez,
I
and
think
the Children of Hurin. That's just, I mean,
I legitimately think the big challenge here is creating a way to actually give it like real context in the greater narrative. I
right.
remember when Dunkirk came out, I remember reading Victor Davis Hanson's review of it, and I always said that the movie could have been great if it had done a little less being artsy fartsy, a little more contextualizing, like the struggle of the soldiers at Dunkirk in like a more overarching narrative sense. Like you see a little bit, not a lot, just a little
Mhm.
bit of like what's at stake, seeing what's going on in London, seeing what's going on the Nazi side.
Yeah,
You don't have to concentrate heavily on it. Just put a little bit of it in. And I think that's kind of what you need, what you would, if you were going to do this. And let's be honest, we don't want it to happen.
no.
And we don't want Peter Jackson to do it.
Oh God, no.
But if it was going to happen at all, I think that would be very important. Giving that greater meta context. Seeing where Morgoth plays into this, seeing how the Valar play into this. And
Oh
also
yeah,
seeing also seeing the other elven realms in Beleriand. Just not seeing them all the time, but getting a little taste of them.
right.
But then that's where you run into the problem where there's
And
too
I mean,
much.
then later after that, you've got like this whole sort of other story with Numenor.
Hmm.
It's just,
Well,
there's no way.
Akalabeth would be its own movie. Akalabeth, by no stretch of imagination, would have to be its own movie. There's no way it could avoid that. Akalabeth, and maybe make it a duology and end it with the War of the Last Alliance. Maybe, you know.
Wow.
I must admit, I would actually love to see a movie showing the War of the Last Alliance. See what you can come up with, given that there's not a lot of detail given in it. The most we see is the final siege of Barad-dûr. That's all. That's the most we really see of it. See of that war. We don't see the build up. We don't see the attacks on Gondor. We don't really get to see much of that. So
Uh,
I don't just mean in movie form. I mean in book form too. That's where
mm,
most of the focus is.
yeah, I mean, uh, of course, when you read it, there's so many things that you want to see, but then if they actually made it, they screw so much up. They screw it up so bad.
I know what you mean.
Uh, I don't know. I think I'll just keep it evergreen in my mind because I would hate it. I would hate it so much.
Something else I
It,
would also like to see. I'm sorry, what?
oh, it's just one of the things that I hated so much about Hobbit um, was how stupid and petty they made Smaug out to be,
Mm-hmm.
and especially after having read, about the dragons and the Silmarillion.
Mm-hmm.
It's just no, you wouldn't outwit a dragon.
Yeah, Glaurung is scary.
Oh
Glaurung
my
is flat out
gosh.
scary. He's beaten almost by luck. He's pretty much beaten out. He's pretty much beaten by luck and courage. That's the only way Glaurung is killed.
It's just and when I saw how, just like no, stupid little dwarves running all over the place outwitting this dragon. You've got to be kidding me.
Well, it just shows though that they don't understand what dragons in the Lord of the Rings actually represent. Dragons are actually the pinnacle of not Sauron of Morgoth's creations. You know,
Yeah.
that's pretty much alongside the Balrogs. They're the pinnacle of his creations.
Yeah.
They don't get more dangerous than that.
Jeez.
Now, admittedly,
If you
Smog is maybe not the
completely brainwash someone just with their presence.
but
Yeah. After reading the Silmarillion, you really appreciate that whole exchange Bilbo has with Smaug,
mhm.
and you understand really how Smaug was basically just bored and toying with him,
Yep.
and he got away with by sheer luck. Uh, yeah, I couldn't stand to see the Silmarillion treated like that. I really couldn't.
I'll tell you something though. Something I would love to see depicted in some visual form is Gondolin. Um, Gondolin, I don't know what it is, but Gondolin always captured my imagination. In fact, the first time I ever saw it depicted actually wasn't in writing. It was in a Minecraft adventure map.
Yeah,
Someone went to the effort of making the entire city of Gondolin in Minecraft and its entire adventure about the fall of Gondolin. You actually
right.
venture through the
I was
city and
actually thinking I would trust game developers more with the story of the Silmarillion than I would
not Warner
like.
Brothers though. And unfortunately, Warner Brothers gaming division is the company that has the rights to making Lord of the Rings games.
Oh,
And
okay.
unfortunately, I don't think they've ever made a very good one. They've made decent ones. Shadow of Mordor was good, though kind of lore wise, it's a little
Yeah.
makes your stomach a bit. Same with War in the North. It's a good game, but it kind of like lore wise, like Battle for Middle Earth was okay, but it's not my cup of tea in terms of strategy. It's a lot like Command and Conquer, and I don't really like Command and Conquer slash StarCraft style games.
Hmm.
Too fast paced for my liking. Um, Honestly, I would trust what I would trust is sort of indie sort of people. People making mods and so forth, like the Gondolin map. I wonder if it's still around. If we could, because if we could, it would actually be kind of fun to play. I think because I'm sure you could play Minecraft on something. Even with a potato, I think you could probably play Minecraft. Because I played that 7, 8 years ago with some old friends from Mountain Blade Warband, and one of them was a real Lord of the Rings nerd, but we played that map, and I remember it was so much fun. It was so cool because the idea of Gondolin is really cool. This idea of a hidden city,
Oh
this
yeah,
idea of
yeah.
a city hidden behind 7 gates and everything. That's so incredible. That's so amazing and incredible, and to see it depicted, it's like be like a dream. But but of course, and I've also mentioned that like my favorite thing to have played on my YouTube channel was Third Age Total War. Depicting the War of the Ring in a real time strategy setting, but not like Command and Conquer, but like a grander strategy sort of setting. And I think that's I think that's so cool. I feel like there's something else I'm forgetting too. Like there's something else more recent that depicts the Lord of the Rings. But oh yeah, Last Days of the Third Age in Mountain Blade. In Mountain Blade, and that's again, it's cool to see that. It's really cool to see that. It's a really it's because you're not going to get this from AAA game developers. You're not. They're more interested in making $1 million than they are in
Mhm.
making like a real, especially these days. They're more interested in making a lot of money as opposed to making really good games. This is becoming very prevalent in the proliferation of loot boxes. Loot
Yeah.
boxes basically being in-game gambling, often for real money. Because you open the box and maybe you'll get what you want, maybe you won't. And frankly, it's a terrible system that's really proliferating among many games. You know, Shadow of War, the sequel to Shadow of Mordor, has it. The new Assassin's Creed game has it. New Star Wars Battlefront's going to happen, and it's terrible, especially because a lot of these loot boxes, like say in Overwatch. In Overwatch, the loot boxes are only cosmetic items. They do not affect gameplay whatsoever. But in the 3 other games I mentioned, they do. You know, you can get items that will make your game easier. You will get items that will unlock new elements of your game. You know, stuff like that. And it's really kind of a poison pill to AAA game development, I think. You know, and that's why I don't really trust like Warner Brothers to, you know, like make a good Lord of the Rings game. Because they're more interested in making a game that will allow them to make lots and lots of money going forward, rather than making a good, solid, decent, for a single player experience that you only ever play once. But that's only because that's all you ever want to play it, because it's that good.
Yeah.
You know? I know I got into the weeds of game design there, but it is important though, because
it's relevant.
Because you said that you think that game development will be a good way to explore Middle Earth, and I agree. The problem is that we're not going to get it from the companies that could theoretically provide the best experience.
Really mass produced.
You know, the sources of the best quality, you know, the best quality kind potential, I should say, just isn't there. You know, game development honestly, the game development scene actually is a really sad state of affairs right now, because a lot of bad practices are being instituted by game developers lately. Game developers and publishers like EA and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're seeing a lot of that. The channel I use to kind of keep up with it is Young Ya. Kind of a semi-goofy Asian guy, but he does a lot of really interesting analysis videos of this sort of thing, of these elements of games and news and reviews and so forth. He does a lot of that, and he's actually a surprisingly good channel. I started watching him just before my trip here back in April. And in fact, he was he was actually one of the YouTube channels I watched very consistently when my computer was down. So, and someone else I also follow in this regard, Total Biscuit, of course, Total Biscuit. You know, for all his foibles and failings and rampant leftism, when it comes to video games, I trust his opinion a lot. You know, I trust and respect his opinion a lot. So, you know, if you're ever interested in keeping track of those sorts of things, I definitely recommend Young Yeah, YONGYEA, and Total Biscuit. If you can't spell total and biscuit, well, why are you watching this show? But at least Young Yeah is, you know, some sort of Asian. Anyway.
So racist.
I'm not a racist. What are you talking about? Anyway, so yeah. Wow, we've been recording for like for an hour and 10 minutes.
Well, it's been a while. We had a lot to talk about.
And even then, we only really kind of scratched the surface, didn't we?
I know, but...
Because we've gotten so many tangents.
We had to nerd out for a little while there.
So anyway, we want to thank you for watching this episode of Nerd Rage, whatever episode it is. It might be 179, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure we're not at 180 yet, though.
Okay.
Are we?
All right. I don't know.
I haven't even looked at the channels since we stopped.
Oh, wow.
In fact, before we go, that's something I do want to bring up, because we were talking about this before I started recording. But in many ways, I kind of want to apologize for kind of just stopping the show without any sort of announcement or news or anything. But truth be told, and it's mostly me personally, I honestly did kind of burn out on the. I kind of burnt out on the channel. I burnt out on a lot of things, honestly, a couple of months ago. You know, just trying to maintain the channel, and not only this channel, but my YouTube channel, Oscar and Fire. I really legitimately 100% burnt out on it. And I'm not really all there again. I just wanted to do this. I just wanted to do this again because The Walking Dead is back, and I know that someone here appreciates discussing that. So I thought it was at least worthwhile to try and do something again, you know, to discuss at least the first episode. and I'm going to be 100% honest. I'm not certain where we're going. Where we're going forward. Where what the hell did I just say? I'm not 100% certed. Yes, that's where I wanted. I need a laser or something to shoot myself in the head with. I am not 100% certain where we're going forward from this. That is still janky, but you know what I'm trying to say. And if you don't, well, why are you watching the show? Me stumbling over my words is like this one of its staples.
It really is. Yeah.
But
Kind of
anyway.
cute.
But anyway, but yeah, I can't be certain where we're going after this because, again, I'm not really altogether, right now, regarding either YouTube channel or regarding being creative in general, and it sucks. I'm kind of disappointed in myself, but I definitely think I kind of need to be in a better place personally before I can like really start to commit to doing these things more consistently. So for now, hopefully we'll have a show next week to discuss at least The Walking Dead. Maybe, that pervert Harvey Weinstein, because I don't think we can, because I hate to say it, but I think we can't avoid a discussion, especially with all these especially with the allegations exploding everywhere across the entertainment industry. I think we can't really avoid a discussion on it at some point, and it's relevant to you in particular, frankly. I think in many ways. So I think that like a nice serious discussion about these things might not hurt at some point. But
Yeah. Maybe we can have Ruth on for that.
that too. She actually would be a good guest to have on for that as well, wouldn't she? But anyway, we want to thank you for watching this episode of Nerd Rage. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and a comment down below.
And subscribe.
And subscribe.
So, it's actually morale boosting when you know that people want to see your show.
Yeah, so when you know they're coming back, when you know they're coming back for more.
Yeah.
Also, check the links in the description below. I'm getting there. Check the links in the description below for links to our social media pages. We are, of course, both on Facebook. We also have a website that we have definitely 100% neglected in recent history.
So much neglect. So much neglect.
Didn't I write something like a month and a half ago, though?
You did.
What was it again? I kind of... Oh, right. I wrote a review of the Defenders of Shannara trilogy. That's right.
Okay, yeah.
That's right. Okay. Anyway.
I might have to review the Monster Hunter series because I'm reading that and I love it.
Anyway, you can also follow us on Twitter. You can follow Shannon
at Limbus_N_coffee. I'm on Twitter and Instagram on Limbus and Coffee.
You can also follow me at Osseronphaer, OSERONPHAER. Can I say that any faster? Probably not.
You got it all out in one go, though. How about that?
Yes. It's really funny. It's a weird thing, actually. When I do things really fast like that, sometimes I get it all out in one fell swoop instead of stumbling on it. I don't know why that is. It is bizarre, though. I think I may just be used to talking so fast at this point that it's just what my body's used to. So when I try to talk slower, it's like, no, what are you doing? No, stop it. Hit the accelerator. Do it. Anyway, you could also follow my YouTube channel on hiatus as it is, of the same name. Also, there is Extra Life. I am, of course, doing Extra Life again this year. And even though I have largely neglected it, that's still going. There probably won't be a marathon. Live stream. Definitely not on game day because I work that day. But I doubt there will be a marathon live stream at some point this year. I mean, I might try to do it, but it's kind of in the air. It's definitely in the air. But at any rate, we want to thank you for watching. And we will catch you next time for more nerdery. Probably a serious talk or two. And
stuff and things.
Yeah. That's okay, everybody. Oh, you know something else we should have. You know something else we could also talk about that's serious? The Russia thing.
Oh gosh,
Because
yeah.
that is hilarious. I am loving the fact that, as Mark Stein put it, everyone, everyone was colluding with Russia except Trump. This is the funniest thing. It's like, and as
Oh,
I see,
they were so convinced that this was going to be, this was going to bring down Trump's campaign, that it was going to get him impeached. They were hanging everything on
like I
Russia.
said, this is literally the worst case of psychological projection in human history.
Okay, for some reason, I cannot even see the word Russia anymore without thinking, on the Brady Bunch, Marsha. I just think Russia.
Every time I hear Russia, I just think of Putin's manly chest, but
oh gosh, I like mine better.
but yeah. Oh my gosh, this is killing me though because it's so ridiculous and over the top now. You know, like I can't believe I almost can't believe it because it's so brazen and ridiculous.
Oh gosh.
You know, and I
Uh,
remember reading something on the American Thinker maybe 4 months ago, where was the American Thinker or was it something else? I can't remember what it was, but anyway, it was basically talking about how like it seems like it seemed increasingly like the whole Russia deal like became a thing in no small part because the Obama administration might have been trying to like cover up like crimes it committed basically, like wiretapping and
right?
spying on the Trump campaign, doing illegal things, and in order to try and get away from it, they dug deeper and deeper trying to get away from it. And suddenly it's true. Suddenly it's true. It's not
It
just
is it's just
conjecture.
the whole time that they've been trying to make Russia such a thing. That clip plays over and over in my mind of we'll have more flexibility after the election.
Hmm.
And that was oh gosh, that was back in
That was in 2012.
right. I mean,
Yep, that was
it's
effective. That was at the United Nations General Assembly back that year.
it's insane how strongly they have projected this. And I really didn't expect to see it all come crashing down, and that's what's so funny.
At the end of the day, I'm not a Trump fan, but I just don't care. I'm like almost 100 after all the craziness and insanity of the past year. I am almost 100% on the same side as Ace of Spades. I really don't care that Trump isn't exactly the best human being on the planet. I'd rather he won than Hillary winning.
Right, yeah. If for no other reason than they are all so pissed off and can't get over it.
It's
That's
watching this
hilarious.
Titanic meltdown for a year. Can you believe it's been a year? Two
Oh,
weeks.
and
It's
isn't
2 weeks
it
from a
like
year.
November 8th, they're all going to go outside and just scream at stuff? Isn't that a thing now?
Yep.
I mean,
It'd be like that. It'd be like that weirdo at the inauguration who did that weird primal scream.
oh my gosh. So now everybody's gonna be that insane woman and just go outside and scream because
Oh, it was a woman. I wasn't sure.
I think so.
Cause
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah,
cause like
yeah.
everyone younger than 30 is androgynous these days.
Jeez. Whatever it was, it reminded me of like a really bitter, dried up, spinsterly like librarian for some reason.
That's insulting to dried up spinster librarians.
I know, but that is just it's weird
Because
to
at least dried up spinster librarians have a little bit of sex appeal still.
Oh, damn stats though. Well, I did say better. Really, really better.
Anyway,
uh yeah, it's comical, it's surreal, it's so many weird things.
I guess the bright side we can actually make this part of the show because well, guess what? I didn't stop recording, so I did get to comment on it after all, just without the veneer of
I
actually being in the
apologize
show.
to all the librarians if you do so.
Uh, Life is so weird and sad these days, though.
uh, Definitely weird.